If you're a TSQL or SQL developer and want to create a calendar for your date dimension along with a procedure or function that can display the calendar similarly to the Unix operating system and its variations, then this is the session that will provide an opportunity to explore a variety of SQL built-in functions. You may wonder why you would need to have a calendar at the command level or command line. Well, the truth of the matter is you don't. Nevertheless, this session features two segments. The first segment focuses on generating a date dimension for your databases, data warehouses, cubes, Power BI, Excel analysis, etc. The second segment is about having fun with the command line version, and that mimics those found in Unix-like systems. Back in the day, that Unix operating system or similar operating systems that they had these kind of functionality, the command level was, the truth of the matter is, they didn't have too much of a GUI going on back then. So Unix and all other Unix-based operating systems such as Sun OS, BSD, Linux, and PDP include the cal function to display a calendar. In contrast, Windows command prompt doesn't really have the cal natively unless a command line utility is installed. In fact, the only thing that is available is you can adjust the date and time at the command level or the terminal in Windows, and that's about it. We have two special guests starring today: recursive CTEs, cursors, and SQL command line utility that will be exploring that can call a store procedure that we are going to build today around our script. So, despite of many developers' opinion about the cursors, there is still need for cursors, believe it or not. So let's get on with that and see what's going to happen. All right, let's get down to the brass tacks. Well, we're going to have some declaration going on, for a couple of variables, if that, and we're going to step into the segment 1 and segment 2, which part 1 is basically consists of the source of the calendar and the range of the dates that we are going to produce entries for that calendar. First, we're going to try to use a parameter for one given year and a month, let's say December. And then later, we're going to see how it works with more than 1 month, even more than a year. We can go 10 years or 20 years. So I'm going to explain line by line, well, maybe not line by line, but section by section, as I see where the explanation fits. And if I need to add comments, I will add comments to it before I post the script on GitHub for your reference to review. And all right, so let's start with the first two parameters, or variables, I should say. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I normally use a database called something like a sandbox. I mean, it doesn't matter what database name is, that's your choice of database. So in case if you need to create a physical table, you can use it over and over instead of a temp table that it disappears once it's done. So we're going to look into whether these two tables exist or not. These are the temporary tables that they're placeholder for the time being. The script is going to process the records within the same scope of this script. So source calendar, and then obviously the output, what comes in must go out. So we're going to start with 2024, year of 2024, with the December month. And then we would like to also add another variable just in case if you want to display it for whatever the reason at the command level. Let's say today's date. Unfortunately, we can't make it a color highlighted showing, oh, here's the 20th of December, and then show it at the command line. But that's something that I can put it on the side of the command line output, so it kind of stands out. All right, so what you see here is the a string that is concatenated here to show the starting date, right? We have the year, we have the month, and obviously we're going to start it from the first day of that month, December 1st, 2024. So this is where that happens. The two zeros that you see in here, I would like to show a zero on the left side of the single digits, so they're uniformly two digits and they're displayed. So the way it works is converts it into a string, adds two zeros to the left, so it becomes like 4 characters long, right? As you can see, we got a varchar 2 going on in here, and then plus 2 zeros, that makes it 4. But then again, we are saying, hey, we just want 2 of them, and just give me the right 2 characters, right? So that would be 0, 1, 0, 2, as an example, for the second day and the third, and so on and so forth, until it hits the 2 digits. And then we need a cutoff date. I mean, how long you want to run this process for? A month, 10 months, 20 months. And here is what you see here is by month. You can change that, make that a year, and then it's going to go all the way to the end of 1 year. Or if you leave it at month here, then you can say, hey, I want, let's say, 120 months, 10 years. Well, we're just going to play around with 1 month for right now. So as we move along, we're going to hit the first CTE. Now, this is the first recursive set of CTEs. As you can see, here we have the first CTE, recursive CTE. It generates the number of days that falls into the scope of whatever we decided to go with on line 46. We want 1 month. Okay. So it's going to go ahead and use the start date, right? And the cutoff date, which is 1 month, right? And it says, all right, so what is the date difference between the start date and the cutoff date, right? It says, oh, it looks like it's 31 days. So fine. So this segment of the CTE holds on to 31 days for the bottom pieces that they'll be using this, right? And you will see in a minute how it kind of like a domino, like a ladder, you know, it goes up to the top level CTE, into the second level, third level, so on and so forth, to fulfill the whole calendar's records needed. And the second part of the CTE is the one that actually hits the top part, saying that, hey, I'm starting from December 1st of 2024 and take that n back from the number of days, which is the upper CTE, and add it to my day to process CTE, because I'm going to be using it by adding the parameter here as a D for the bottom piece. You'll see how that works. And so this will call the days to process, and the days to process will be calling the number of days. So you see how it works. Boom, boom, boom. It goes up 3 levels. And then at the end, it puts the results into a temporary table called source calendar. Well, we need the source calendar. Now, this is the same calendar that you would need for your date dimension, for your cube, for your data analysis, for your PBI, for Excel analysis, for SSAS, online analytical processes. Every system, every database needs a calendar dimension. You can't work without it. It's part of the computer science you gotta have. So I'm gonna go ahead and see what happens if I run it from the top to the end of, including line 85, to see what we're gonna get. So one way is just to highlight, since this is in a batch mode, right? We're gonna highlight, go all the way to the top where the first statement begins with the dropping the temporary table if it exists or not. As you can see here, it gives us the whole calendar for the month. See, there are 31 days. My apologies, I didn't zoom in earlier on this, so it would make it a little bit easier on the eye, I hope. So I'm going to go ahead back up again to show you a little bit of that. So here are the first variables we created, and then the concatenation here, right? And here's the first CTE that generates the days, passes it down to this guy, right? And it's the last part that iteratively keeps generating the records and puts them into the temporary table source calendar. Now, this is the results. Now, if I had to go back up here and make the change to the number of months, let's say make that 12 months, right? And if I change this to January, as you can see, well, actually it ran both parts. I didn't want to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the first part first. So you see here is January 1st of 2024, as we selected that date, right? January 2024, first day. And oh, by the way, for those of you who are wondering how did I get the query results in and out, is by Control R, and that can be found when you are in the queries. Control R, Control P's, they're all in here. And so this generates, I don't need to rerun it again. The generated records are already sitting in this temporary table, and I do have a video on temporary tables for those of you if you need more information on that. And so we go to the bottom of this list. As you can see, it goes to March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December 31st. So you can see how that works. So I'm going to go back up there again and change it to just 1 month. Here is the 12. Change that. Change this back to December and rerun it to the top. And again, to execute that, you can either do Control E, as in Edward, or you can highlight it and click on execute here, which is the same as F5. It's just a force of habit that, I've been doing this for so long, I keep highlighting and doing Control E's. So the next step is to create the output for command line calendar. So here's the creation of the temp table. What do I want to see? I want to see a 2-letter days instead of 3 or the full name. Sun, SU, or all the way through SA. And here is the week number and day of week that I want to see. We do have a source of the date, right? The calendar. Now we have to take advantage of it. We have to leverage that. We're going to have 3 cursors, right? The first cursor is for week number. You got 52 weeks, right? So whatever the number of week it falls into the month of December, we need that, right? So it will read it from the calendar table and process it. The second layer is what day of the week it is. If it's the first day or the second day or the 6th day or the 7th day, right? So based on any one of those, there will be an update to that temporary table that we created for our output. So for instance, if it's a day 1, then update the table and change the Sunday value to whatever it's supposed to be. And here are 3 cursors. At the end of each cursor process or iteration, you need to destroy it. To destroy this cursor, first you have to close the cursor and then deallocate it. Now, to create a cursor, for those of you interested to know, is you will have to have a data set for your cursor, whatever that cursor is supposed to be doing, right? So here is a declaration part. You declare the cursor first, and once you declare the name, then you need to associate it with a data set. What data set is going to be pointing to that cursor, right? So in this case is go ahead and give me a distinct the week numbers, right? The week from the calendar, the one that we created up in above, right? and then once this part is done, then you're gonna go ahead and open the cursor. So basically, open cursor, it means open this temporary table. Well, it's called cursor, right? But think about it as a table that you need to open it and use whatever is in that set. And what do you want to do with it? Well, I want to go fetch the first record, right? So this is what happens. It opens the cursor, grabs the first record. Oh, what do you want to do with it? So you want to put it in a new variable. You want to play with that number, right? Whatever the week number is. So it grabs it and puts it in a week number variable. Then we're going to say, all right, we have the first value. Now we're going to open up a loop. Basically, while statement is a loop, right? So it's saying, hey, go ahead and start fetching, right? As long as the status is 0. If it's a non-zero, that means something happened. It's either end of the file or something happened. There was an error, there was a disconnection, or anything else other than a positive result would be a non-zero. So we want to embrace the whole process in this loop into a begin and end, right? So it's in one scope. Now, within that scope, we want to open another cursor, and within that scope, we want another cursor open, right? Because it's 3 layered. And if you look into the other programming languages like PowerShell, C, Python, any other language you look at it, you will see the same similar activity is required. You need to get into the 3 layers, right? So you understand the first cursor, how it was developed. You will understand the second and third. It's the same mechanics, same way of generating a cursor. Well, the only thing that you need to be careful is when you go to the second iteration, which is the second cursor, well, you want to make sure that you don't necessarily operate the same record, use the same records that you already used. So you have to say, hey, wait a minute. You need to only look at those week numbers that I need. It was part of the first fetch, right? The same thing with the second layer. You're going to say, hey, give me only those week numbers that I need with the days that fall into that week number, like 1 through 7. Then once you get to the third part, everything is downhill. Everything is piece of cake, right? At the end of each segment, then you will have to fetch again. So you fetch first, add it into the variable. Then at the end of the iteration, at the end of the loop, you need to fetch again. Once grabs the fetch record, if there's any issues, it will pass it to the while statement saying, hey, something went wrong, and then the process gets terminated or abnormally gets terminated, right? Now, when everything is done, then you go ahead and use the select statement to display what's in there. Here it is. It shows number of days, right? Today's the 21st, and it shows it's December. And these are the days, and today is the 21st. There you go. It's a Saturday. All right. What I want to start with is to add this little comment in here. So for our reference later, when we know that to reduce the traffic that comes from the network that is suppressed, we can use the set no count on. Now this process, this batch generates two sets of results. And let's say I just want to see one of them, right? And I just want to see the calendar on the command line that I'm going to be using a utility, a command line utility to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and declare a variable called hide the date dimension, right? And this is, let's say, is a small int, and we're going to call that small int is a data type for that is going to be small 0 or 1, or it's kind of like a bit. Actually, we can do a bit, right? And give it a value of 0. That means don't hide it, right? And then here, what we can do is in the line where we are displaying it, we can add an if statement. If hide, what did I call that? I already forgot. Hide date dimension is 0, then we want to be able to see this in action. Otherwise, it's going to skip it. And let's see how that works. There you go. So now it says, oh, it's a 0, so show it. Now, if I want to hide it, I'll change that to a 1. And we'll just see the calendar, the small version of the calendar down below, not the whole entire calendar dimension. Okay, cool. So what's next? I promised that I was going to create a store procedure. It's a very simple process. The only thing that we need to do to create a store procedure around this is we can't have duplicate variables for it, right? So why don't I start it from here saying, actually, I want to use the sandbox because I want to keep that store procedure in there, right? The next step is going to be create procedure, and I have a schema which is different than DBO. If you're using a DBO, obviously you don't need to declare it here. By default is DBO. So CTO, I like to name my prefixes with the USB user defined store procedure, and actually, you know what? Let's just call it a cal. So it will kind of mimic what the Unix has, right? Now for my parameters, I want to, yeah, you know what? I'm going to use the same things in here. I'm just going to take this and put it up there, right? Separated by a comma. And the other one is this one. I'm going to take this and place it up there. And what else do we need? Okay, and followed by as. Now, begin and end is optional in Supercharge, but I like to always embrace it in there. It's a good practice. So to go back up, we have created a procedure called cal, and oh, we have this thing we can add, right? We'll add that in there. And this is a bit. And what we need to do, we need to hide these guys. Control KC is, makes it a comment, right? Where you can click on this guy up here. It does wrap around the comment block. And this one, We don't need to redeclare it. It's already declared up there, and we're gonna add a comment to it. We're gonna check to see if everything is right and no errors, at least not syntactically, and maybe logically, but we'll see about that, right? So now I'm just gonna go up here and execute the whole thing to create the store procedure. There it is. So now what we can do as a test, I'd like to add it like a comment line and say execute CTE cal. And we need to add a couple of parameters, right? 2024. And we said we want to start with December. And yes, go ahead, hide it. There, look at that. So we have a store procedure that we can call and get the calendar. How are we going to use our command line utility? Well, it comes with Management Studio. This is SQL CMD. Let me bring that up on the screen so we can see it. And I need here SQL CMD. You run a command CMD and you get you to command line, and you will be authenticated as a local administrator if you're a local administrator. And you can do the same thing. You can say use some kind of similar command that you see in the background, that right behind it you see use sandbox and a go. We do the same thing. We type it in here. Use sandbox, right? Followed by a go, and press enter. As you can see, it's got line 1, line 2, and then go executes up to including go. Now the context is switched to sandbox. So it is pointing to sandbox. The next thing we need to do is execute that store procedure, the same store procedure, right? 2024. And we were looking at month of December. And we want to hide the date dimension. We don't want to see the whole thing, right? And we just want the calendar. And go. There you go. There you have it. So this is how the utility, SQL utility works to display that calendar. And what I like to show you is as you can see, there are so many columns, right? We have the day of the week, the full name, the short name, the number of the day for the week, right? And then we have an ISO week, is used in financial businesses, for fiscal years, fiscal calendars, whatnot, right? And then as you can see, we have the whole name for the month, full name, the number 12, and which quarter it is for financial purposes for fiscal year is the fourth quarter. And some businesses, they start in different different months. Sometimes they start in February. Sometimes they use, if I'm not mistaken, end of September for some government purposes. And at the last column you see is what day of the year it is, 336, 335, right? So you can see we got a whole bunch of columns that we added in here. And you know what? Using these functions that we have, date functions in here, it takes apart the date that knows about into quarters, into month, into week, the name of the day. So you see all these functions that you see in here, they're readily available at Microsoft. Well, we used to call it a TechNet. Now you can go and Google it, and don't go to the sponsors, go straight to Microsoft where the actual information is coming from. Now I always do that. I don't go to the forums. I don't, unless if you go to 3Ws, which is a great training site. Well, if you find this interesting, if you have any questions, please contact me or put your comments there for me, and I will modify this, put some additional comments, and I'll add it to the GitHub so you can download it for your reference and for your review. And if you like to join my channel, please subscribe and like. And I would love to hear more about what you have taken away from this video. If there's something lacking, I can probably update it, add it to it for later review. And I appreciate your time and have a great day ahead. Thank you.